The phone screen glowed in Dante Moretti's hand, casting shadows across his face as he stood frozen in the hallway outside his son's bedroom. His finger hovered over the camera app icon, heart hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape his chest. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, the same instinct that had kept him alive through 15 years of running Chicago's underworld. An hour. Rosa said Amara had been upstairs with Nico for an hour. His jaw clenched. An hour was too long. Way too long. The weight of the gun pressed against his lower back, cold metal through the fabric of his shirt. He'd grabbed it without thinking when Rosa told him Nico had locked himself in his room again, refusing dinner for the third night in a row. 3 nights without food. His 6-year-old son was wasting away, and Dante had been across town arguing with the Calabrese family about a shipment that didn't matter. Nothing mattered except Nico. And now this woman, this stranger he'd married 3 months ago in a transaction dressed up as a wedding, was alone with his son behind a locked door. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and really I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Marco's voice echoed in his head from their conversation 2 days ago. Boss, we don't know her. She came from nowhere, no family, no ties, no history worth mentioning. That's exactly what a plant looks like. Dante had dismissed it then. Now, standing in the suffocating silence of his mansion, he wasn't so sure. He pressed his ear against the door. Humming. He heard humming, soft, melodic, achingly familiar. His breath caught. That was Isabella's lullaby. The one she used to sing to Nico before the accident. Before everything shattered. How did Amara know that song? His hand moved to the doorknob, ready to burst in, ready to protect his son from whatever threat waited on the other side. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the gentleness in that humming. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was cowardice. Dante pulled out his phone instead, thumb moving with muscle memory to the hidden camera app. The one Amara didn't know existed. The one that showed him every corner of Nico's room in crystal clarity. He tapped the screen. And everything he thought he knew began to crumble. 3 months earlier, Dante Moretti sat across from a woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Amara Dubois kept her hands folded in her lap, back straight, eyes fixed on the mahogany desk between them rather than on him. Smart. Most people couldn't hold his gaze for more than a few seconds. The lawyer V. Peterson sat to Dante's right, a stack of papers in front of him thick enough to stop a bullet. Miss Dubois, Peterson began, adjusting his glasses, do you understand the terms of this arrangement? Amara's throat moved as she swallowed. Yes. Please state them for the record. Her voice came out steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. I'll move into Mr. Moretti's home and care for his son, Nico. I'll live as his wife in public. The marriage will last a minimum of 1 year. In exchange, I'll receive $200,000, half up front, half upon completion of the contract term. Dante watched her carefully. She didn't look at the money the same way most people did when he made offers. No greedy gleam. No calculation. Just resignation, like she was signing away something she'd never get back. And you understand, Peterson continued, that this is a legal marriage in every sense, but the personal aspects are negotiable? Separate bedrooms, Amara said flatly. Separate lives. I'm there for Nico. That's all. Peterson looked at Dante, who gave a single nod. The truth was, Dante didn't want another wife. Didn't want anyone in Isabella's space, sleeping in her house, breathing her air. But his mother, Julia, had worn him down over months of pleading. That boy is dying inside, Dante. He needs warmth. He needs a mother's touch. You can't reach him anymore, you've tried. Let someone else try. She'd been right. Dante had watched his son disappear into silence over 3 years, watched him shrink and fade until the laughing child who'd once filled their home with joy was just a ghost. Therapists came and went. Medications were adjusted. Nothing worked. Then Julia brought Amara. She's a music teacher, his mother had said. Gentle. Patient. She grew up in foster care, she understands what it's like to be alone. Dante had run every background check possible. Amara Dubois was exactly what she appeared to be, nobody. No criminal record. No concerning associations. Just a 28-year-old woman drowning in student debt, working 3 jobs to keep her head above water. Perfect. Someone desperate enough to accept his terms, invisible enough not to attract attention from his enemies. The wedding happened at City Hall on a Tuesday afternoon. Julia cried. Rosa, the housekeeper, threw rice. Marco stood in the corner looking suspicious of everything. Nico didn't attend, he'd been having a bad day, locked in his room, screaming at the walls. Amara wore a simple cream dress. No veil. No flowers. No illusions. When the judge pronounced them married, Dante didn't kiss her. Just shook her hand like they'd closed a business deal. Because that's all it was. That night, Rosa showed Amara to her room, the guest suite on the opposite end of the hall from Dante's master bedroom. Amara thanked her quietly, closed the door, and didn't come out until morning. Dante went to his office and poured 3 fingers of whiskey he didn't drink. Instead, he pulled up the security camera feeds and watched Amara's door, waiting for her to do something suspicious. She never did. Around 2 in the morning, Nico started screaming. Dante heard it from his office, that familiar sound of his son's nightmares, the ones where he relived his mother's death over and over. His feet wouldn't move. They never did anymore. He just sat there, glass in hand, hating himself. But Amara's door opened. She appeared in the hallway in an oversized t-shirt and sleep shorts, hair loose around her shoulders. She moved toward Nico's room without hesitation, knocked gently. Nico? Sweetheart, it's Amara. Can I come in? The screaming continued. She tried the knob. Locked. It's okay, she called through the door. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. You're safe. She sat down in the hallway, back against the wall beside his door, and started humming. Dante didn't recognize the song then. Some soft melody that seemed to ease through the wood and into the room beyond. The screaming gradually faded to sobs, then to silence. Amara stayed there all night, humming occasionally, dozing against the wall. When Rosa found her in the morning, she helped the younger woman to her feet with a knowing smile. Dante watched it all from the cameras, telling himself he was just being thorough. Just being careful. Just being smart. He definitely wasn't noticing how Amara's face had crumpled with genuine pain when Nico screamed. Definitely not. Day 12 of the arrangement, and Dante was starting to question everything. He stood in the shadow of the doorway leading to the sunroom, watching Amara sit cross-legged on the floor surrounded by books. Dinosaur books. She'd bought at least 20 of them, spent her own money from what Rosa told him, and now she was reading through each one with intense focus, taking notes in a small journal. Nico was supposed to be in the room with her. That was the plan. Story time. Bonding. All the things the child psychologist recommended. Instead, Nico had barricaded himself in the bathroom 30 minutes ago, shouting that he hated her, hated everyone, wanted to be left alone forever. Amara hadn't argued. Hadn't forced. Just said, "Okay, sweetheart. I'll be right here when you're ready." Now she studied those dinosaur books like they held secrets to the universe, occasionally glancing toward the bathroom door with an expression that made Dante's chest tighten uncomfortably. His phone buzzed. Marco. Got the deep background you wanted, boss. Amara Dubois, real name Amara Chin Dubois. Mother was Chinese-American, father was Haitian-American. Both died in a fire when she was 4. Bounced through 7 foster homes before aging out of the system at 18. Full scholarship to Northwestern for music education. Graduated with honors. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. No suspicious contacts. No unexplained money. She's clean. Too clean, Dante muttered. Or just clean, Marco countered. Boss, I've been doing this 20 years. Sometimes people are exactly what they look like. Dante ended the call without responding. In the sunroom, the bathroom door cracked open. Nico's tear-stained face appeared in the gap, eyes red and swollen. He looked at Amara, who immediately smiled, not big and fake, but small and genuine. "Hey," she said softly. "I learned about velociraptors. Did you know they were actually only about the size of a turkey? Movies make them way bigger." Nico didn't respond, but he opened the door another inch. "And they had feathers," Amara continued, turning a page in the book to show him an illustration. "Like birds. Isn't that wild?" Another inch. The really big scary ones were actually called Utahraptors. Way cooler name, if you ask me. Nico took one step out of the bathroom. Then another. He stopped about 6 feet from Amara, arms wrapped around himself like armor. "Want to see?" She held up the book without moving toward him. Nico's internal war played out across his small face, the desire to look battling with the need to stay guarded. Finally, he inched closer. Close enough to see the pages. Not close enough to touch. They stayed like that for 10 minutes. Amara showing pictures, sharing facts, Nico watching silently. When Rosa announced lunch was ready, Nico bolted back to the bathroom and locked the door again. But Amara smiled anyway. "Progress," she whispered to herself. Dante felt something unfamiliar twist in his gut. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. That evening, Marco cornered him in his office. "Boss, I gotta say something." "Then say it." "I've been watching the same feeds you have. I know you've got cameras in every room. I know you're looking for something wrong." Marco leaned against the desk. "I think you're wrong about her." "Based on what?" 12 days of performance? Based on the fact that nobody performs that well. She doesn't know where the cameras are, which means she doesn't know when you're watching. I've seen her alone, boss. Seen her cry when Nico rejects her. Seen her research trauma and attachment disorders until 3 in the morning. Seen her talk to your wife's picture in the garden when she thinks nobody's around. Dante's head snapped up. What? She found Isabella's grave marker. Goes there sometimes. Tells her about Nico's day. Marco's expression softened. She's not a plant, boss. She's just a woman trying to help a broken kid. After Marco left, Dante pulled up the garden camera footage. Scrolled back 3 days. Found the clip. There was Amara, kneeling beside the marble stone marker, one hand pressed to the carved name. Hi, Mrs. Moretti. Isabella. I hope it's okay I'm here. I wanted to tell you about Nico. He's so beautiful. So smart. I can see you in him, in his eyes, in the way he tilts his head when he's thinking. Her voice cracked. I'm trying to help him. I promise I'm not trying to replace you. I could never. You were his mother. I'm just trying to be something. Anything. Someone who stays. She wiped her eyes, stood, then whispered, I hope wherever you are, you're at peace. And I hope you know your son is loved. Even when he pushes everyone away, he's loved. Dante closed the laptop, poured himself that drink he'd been avoiding, and drank it down in one burning swallow. He was wrong. Or he was being played by the best operative he'd ever encountered. Either way, he couldn't tell anymore. And that terrified him more than any rival family ever had. Week 8 brought the first real breakthrough, and Dante almost missed it. He'd been on a call with his accountant, arguing about offshore accounts and tax shelters, when Rosa burst into his office without knocking. The woman had worked for his family for 30 years and knew better than to interrupt unless it was an emergency. Mr. Moretti, you need to see this. He followed her to Nico's room, preparing for the worst. Instead, he found Amara and Nico sitting together at his desk. Not touching, but together. Side by side. Nico was drawing with colored pencils while Amara hummed that damned Italian lullaby. The picture showed a T-Rex eating ice cream. That's incredible, Amara said, leaning closer to look. Is that mint chocolate chip? Nico's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Not quite, but close. I love mint chocolate chip, Amara continued. But I'm more of a Triceratops person myself. You know, the one with the 3 horns? She'd probably like strawberry. Nico picked up a pink pencil. Drew a smaller dinosaur next to the T-Rex. Added 3 horns. Drew what might have been a strawberry ice cream cone in its mouth. Dante's throat closed up. Rosa squeezed his arm, whispered, I told you. She's different. That night, Nico ate dinner at the table for the first time in months. Didn't actually eat much, just pushed pasta around his plate, but he sat there. Near Amara. Not next to Dante, never next to Dante, but present. Dante sat at the head of the table, fork frozen halfway to his mouth, afraid any movement might shatter the fragile piece. How was your day? Amara asked Nico gently. Silence. Mine was good. I taught a piano lesson to a little girl who wants to learn the Jurassic Park theme song. Made me think of you. Nico's eyes flickered toward her for half a second. Maybe sometime you'd want to hear it? I could play it for you. The smallest nod. So small Dante almost missed it. But Amara saw it. Her whole face lit up like Nico had just handed her the world. After dinner, after Nico went to bed, Dante found Amara in the kitchen making tea. She startled when she saw him, like she always did when they were alone. Like she expected him to tell her she was doing something wrong. Thank you, he said. She blinked. For what? For tonight. For. He gestured vaguely toward the stairs. Whatever you're doing. It's working. I'm not doing anything, Amara said quietly, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. I'm just showing up. That's all kids really need, someone who shows up. The therapists couldn't reach him. The therapists weren't trying to love him. They were trying to fix him. She met his eyes directly, something she rarely did. He's not broken, Mr. Moretti. He's hurt. There's a difference. Mr. Moretti. Even after 2 months of marriage, she called him that. The distance was intentional, professional. Exactly what he'd wanted in the contract. So why did it bother him? Dante, he said. You can call me Dante. She studied him like she was trying to figure out a trap. Okay. Dante. His name and her voice sounded different than he expected. Softer. More real. He left before he could think about why that mattered. The next morning, Dante made a decision that Marco would later call his stupidest move yet. He authorized the installation of additional hidden cameras. Not because he suspected Amara of anything, not really, but because he needed to see. Needed to understand. Needed to watch what happened when she thought no one was paying attention. The cameras went in Nico's room, the playroom, the garden. Places Amara spent most of her time. Small, invisible, state-of-the-art. Boss, Marco said as the tech team finished the installation, this feels wrong. I need to know. Know what? That she's doing exactly what we're paying her to do? That she actually gives a damn about your kid? I need to know if it's real. Dante's voice came out harder than intended. In my world, nothing is real. Everything is performance. Everyone wants something. Maybe, Marco said, heading for the door. Or maybe you're so used to darkness you can't recognize light anymore. That night, Dante sat in his office with all the camera feeds pulled up on multiple screens. He watched Amara tuck Nico in, singing that lullaby he'd heard 100 times through doors and walls. Watched her kiss Nico's forehead, smooth his hair back with such tenderness it made Dante's chest ache. Watched Nico whisper something too quiet for the microphone to catch. Watched Amara's face crumple as she whispered back, every single day. I promise. Watched her leave the room, close the door, then lean against the wall in the hallway and cry silently into her hands. Dante's finger hovered over the keyboard, ready to close the feed. He didn't. He watched her pull herself together, wipe her face, go downstairs to clean the kitchen while humming softly to herself. Watched her pause by Isabella's photo in the living room, touch the frame gently, whisper something he couldn't hear. Watched her finally go to her room, close the door, and sit on the edge of her bed looking exhausted and alone and absolutely nothing like a threat. Marco was right. She was real. Which meant Dante was doing something unforgivable, spying on someone who'd done nothing but try to save his son. He should have stopped then. Should have deleted the feeds, removed the cameras, apologized. He didn't. Because he'd forgotten how to trust anything except surveillance and suspicion. And that mistake was about to cost him everything. 72 hours. That's how long Nico went without eating before Dante's world imploded. Night 1, Amara tried the dinosaur game, pretending each bite was a tiny creature going into a cave. Nico turned his back, pulled the covers over his head, wouldn't even look at the food. Night 2, she brought his favorites, chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs, mac and cheese, chocolate milk. Left the tray beside his bed. Nico didn't touch it. The food sat there until Rosa collected it the next morning, untouched and cold. Night 3, Amara didn't bring food at all. Just sat on the floor beside his bed and hummed. Nico stayed buried under his blankets, silent as a grave. Dante was across town when it started, stuck in a meeting with the Calabrese family that devolved into a shouting match about territory and respect and money. Vincent Calabrese slammed his fist on the table, demanded compensation for a shipment that had gone missing on Dante's watch. Dante's phone buzzed. Rosa. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. We're not done here, Moretti, Vincent growled. Yes, we are. Dante stood, checked his phone. 3 missed calls, 2 texts, Nico not eating. 3 days now. Miss Amara very worried. His blood turned to ice. Sit down, Vincent demanded. Touch me and you're dead. Dante was already moving toward the door, Marco scrambling to follow. The 45-minute drive home took 30. Dante broke every traffic law, ran 2 red lights, didn't care. His mind conjured worst-case scenarios in vivid detail: Nico collapsing, Nico in the hospital, Nico disappearing into silence so deep nobody could reach him ever again. 3 days without food. How had he let it get to 3 days? Because you were too busy playing crime lord to be a father, a voice that sounded suspiciously like Isabella whispered in his head. The mansion loomed ahead, every window lit against the darkness. He slammed the car into park, took the front steps 3 at a time. Rosa met him in the foyer, wringing her hands. Where is he? Upstairs. Miss Amara is with him. She's been up there over an hour, sir. An hour. Dante's mind went blank with panic. An hour was too long. Way too long. Nico could be. He forced himself to breathe. To think. To not imagine every terrible possibility. But his feet were already moving, taking the stairs faster than his mind could process, hand automatically reaching for the gun at his lower back even though the threat was probably just in his head. Probably. Marco's warnings echoed back. What if she's not who she says? What if this is all set up? What if? He reached Nico's door. Pressed his ear against it. Humming. Soft and melodic and achingly familiar. That lullaby. Isabella's lullaby. The one she'd sung every night before bed, the one Dante hadn't been able to listen to since the funeral. How did Amara know it? His hand closed around the doorknob, ready to turn it, ready to burst in and protect his son from whatever was happening on the other side. But something stopped him. Some instinct deeper than paranoia, quieter than fear. He pulled out his phone instead, hands shaking so badly he almost dropped it. The hidden camera app opened with a tap. He'd installed it 6 weeks ago, against Marco's advice, against his own better judgment. Needed to see what happened when he wasn't looking. Needed to know if Amara was real or just another performance. Now he pulled up Nico's room feed, pressed play, and felt his entire world shift on its axis. The screen showed Amara sitting cross-legged on the floor beside Nico's bed, a plate of pasta balanced on her lap. She wasn't forcing him. Wasn't even touching him. Just sitting there in the dim glow of the nightlight, humming that lullaby while Nico stayed curled under his covers, back turned to her. You know, she said softly, when I was in foster care, there were times I didn't want to eat either. When I was sad, food just felt wrong somehow. Like my body forgot how. Nico didn't respond, didn't move. I had this foster mom, Mrs. Patterson. She was nice. She used to sit with me just like this. Never forced me. Just stayed. Amara twirled pasta onto a fork, took a bite herself. She'd tell me stories about her day. About the birds in her garden. About anything that wasn't sad. Silence stretched. Amara kept talking, her voice a gentle rhythm. I saw a robin this morning. Right outside your window, actually. It had this worm in its beak, and it was trying to figure out how to land on the branch without dropping it. Took 3 tries. Pretty funny. More silence. But Nico's breathing had changed, Dante noticed. Less ragged. More even. He was listening. I used to pretend each bite was feeding the sad away, Amara continued. Silly, right? But it helped. Not all at once. Just a little bit at a time. She set the fork down, wrapped her arms around her knees. You don't have to eat, Nico. I'm not here to force you. I just wanted you to know I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. No matter how long it takes. Dante watched, frozen in the hallway, as minutes ticked by in excruciating slow motion. Amara kept humming, kept being present, kept not demanding anything. Then, so slowly Dante almost missed it, a small hand emerged from under the covers. Nico turned over. His face was puffy from crying, eyes red and swollen. He looked at Amara with such raw vulnerability that Dante felt his chest crack open. "I miss my mama." 3 words. The first words Nico had spoken in 3 years. Dante's phone slipped from his shaking hands, caught it before it hit the floor, pressed it against his chest like it could hold his breaking heart together. On the screen, Amara's face crumpled with compassion, but she held steady. Didn't rush forward, didn't overwhelm him. "I know you do, sweetheart. I know." Her voice was thick with tears she was fighting to control. "And it's okay to miss her. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to not be okay." She picked up the fork again, held it out. Not insistent. Just offering. "But your mama, she'd want you to be strong. She'd want you to eat and grow and be the amazing boy she knew you were. The boy I'm getting to know." Nico stared at the fork. At Amara. At the pasta. An eternity passed in seconds. Then his small hand reached out, trembling, and took the fork from her. He brought it to his mouth. Took a bite. Chewed slowly. Swallowed. Tears streamed down his face, but he took another bite. And another. Amara didn't make a big deal of it, didn't celebrate or call attention. She just kept humming that lullaby, kept being present, kept loving him without demanding anything in return. Dante stood in that hallway, back pressed against the wall, watching through a phone screen as this woman, this stranger he'd married in a cold transaction, did what he couldn't. She reached his son. Not with money. Not with therapy. Not with expertise. Just with love. Pure, unconditional, patient love. And Dante realized with crushing, suffocating shame that he'd been wrong about everything. Wrong about Amara. Wrong about what Nico needed. Wrong about how to heal. He'd been so consumed by paranoia, so destroyed by loss, so terrified of trusting anyone that he'd become the very thing his son needed protection from. He was the threat. He was the one hurting Nico, not through action, but through absence. Through emotional walls. Through choosing surveillance over connection. Through forgetting how to be a father. The phone in his hands felt like evidence of his sins. All those cameras, all that watching, all that suspicion directed at a woman who'd done nothing but try to save his child. He needed to fix this. Needed to apologize. Needed to figure out how to be the man his son deserved, the husband Amara hadn't asked for but was getting anyway. But first, he needed to get through this door without destroying the fragile piece on the other side. Dante raised his hand to knock. Stopped. Lowered his hand. And stood there in the hallway, paralyzed by the weight of his own failures, listening to his son eat dinner while a stranger sang his dead wife's lullaby. Dante couldn't move. His body had become stone, rooted to the carpet outside his son's room while inside, life was happening, real, messy, beautiful life that he'd been too broken to participate in. Through the phone screen, he watched Amara coax another bite into Nico's mouth. Then another. The boy was crying, eating, grieving, and healing all at once, and Amara held space for all of it without flinching. That's it, sweetheart. One more bite. Just one more. Nico obeyed, his small jaw working mechanically, tears dripping onto the plate. When he finally set the fork down, he'd eaten maybe a third of the pasta. Not much. But everything. Amara set the plate aside, pulled a tissue from the box on the nightstand, and gently wiped Nico's face. The tenderness in that simple gesture broke something in Dante's chest that had been calcified for 3 years. I'm so proud of you, Amara whispered, tucking the covers around Nico's shoulders. Your mama would be so proud of you. Nico's voice came out small, fragile as glass. Do you think she can see me? From heaven? Amara's breath hitched. Dante watched her blink back tears, watched her choose her words with the care of someone diffusing a balm. I think if heaven exists, and if she's there, there's no way she's looking anywhere else. You're her whole heart, Nico. That doesn't end just because someone goes away. Then she saw me being bad. Saw me not eating. Saw me being mean to you. Oh, baby, no. Amara's voice cracked. She saw you hurting. That's different. Being hurt isn't being bad. And she understands. Mamas always understand. Nico studied her face with those old, too knowing eyes. Are you sad a lot? Like me? The question landed like a physical blow. Dante watched Amara's composure fracture, watched her decide in real time whether to lie or trust this child with her truth. Yeah, she admitted softly. Yeah, I am sometimes. I lost my mama too, when I was really little. Younger than you. And sometimes the sad still comes back, even though it's been a long time. Does it ever stop? The missing? No. But it gets different. Less sharp. More like, remembering hurts, but it also feels good because you're remembering someone you loved. Does that make sense? Nico nodded slowly. Then, in a movement so unexpected it made Dante's heart stop, the boy reached out and took Amara's hand. I'm glad you're here, Nico whispered. I'm glad you stayed even when I was mean. Amara's face crumpled completely. She brought Nico's small hand to her lips, kissed his knuckles. There is nowhere else I'd rather be. Nowhere. You hear me? Can you sing the song again? The one my mama used to sing? Of course, sweetheart. Amara began the lullaby, her voice pure and aching. Dante recognized it now, not just the melody, but the specific way Isabella used to sing it, the little variations in the Italian lyrics. Amara had learned it perfectly, had studied it like scripture, had given his son back something Dante had taken away through his own cowardice. He'd stopped singing after Isabella died. Stopped doing anything that reminded him of her because the pain was too enormous to face. In protecting himself, he'd stolen this from Nico. This comfort. This connection. And Amara had given it back. Nico's eyes drifted closed. His breathing evened out. Within minutes, he was asleep, one hand still clutching Amara's. She stayed for another 20 minutes, not moving, just sitting there on the floor beside his bed like a sentinel. Finally, when she was certain he was deeply asleep, she carefully extracted her hand, stood up with visible effort, her legs must have gone numb from sitting so long, and gathered the plate. She paused at the door, looked back at Nico sleeping peacefully, and whispered, I love you, little one. More than you'll ever know. Then she opened the door. Dante had maybe 3 seconds to react. He shoved his phone in his pocket, pressed himself against the wall beside the doorframe, praying the shadows would hide him. His heart hammered so loud he was certain she'd hear it. Amara stepped into the hallway, pulling the door closed with excruciating care so it wouldn't wake Nico. She stood there for a moment, forehead pressed against the wood, shoulders shaking with silent sobs she'd held back for Nico's sake. Dante watched her fall apart in the dimly lit hallway, watched her cry into her hand to muffle the sound, watched her be completely, devastatingly human. She had no idea he was there. No idea anyone was watching. This was the real Amara. Not performing for cameras. Not putting on a show. Just a woman who'd given everything to a child who wasn't hers and was breaking under the weight of how much she cared. He should have announced himself. Should have stepped forward and thanked her, comforted her, done something besides hide like a thief in his own home. But shame rooted him in place. Shame and the horrifying realization that he'd spent 2 months suspecting this woman of malicious intent when she'd been doing nothing but bleeding herself dry to save his son. Amara finally pulled herself together, wiped her eyes, straightened her spine. She headed toward the stairs, still carrying the plate, still humming that lullaby under her breath. Dante waited until she was gone before he moved. His legs felt disconnected from his body as he walked to his office, closed the door, locked it. He pulled up the camera archives on his computer, weeks of footage he'd been too busy to review thoroughly. He needed to see. Needed to know. Needed to understand exactly how blind he'd been. He started with last week. Watched Amara's daily routine unfold and fast-forward across multiple screens. There she was in Nico's room, reading dinosaur books to herself because Nico wouldn't listen. There she was in the garden, talking to Isabella's grave marker, asking for guidance. There she was in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, researching childhood trauma and attachment disorders on her laptop, taking notes in a worn journal. He slowed the footage. Zoomed in on the journal entries visible on screen. Day 43, Nico made eye contact today for 3 full seconds. Small victories. Keep showing up. Don't give up. He's worth it. Day 51, he threw a book at me. Hit my shoulder. I told him it was okay to be angry. He looked confused. Like nobody's ever given him permission to feel his feelings. Note, talk to therapist about this. Day 58, breakthrough, he didn't scream when I entered his room. Just pulled the covers over his head. Progress. Page after page of observations, strategies, hopes, and heartbreaks. This wasn't the journal of someone running a con. This was a roadmap of someone fighting a war for a child's soul. Dante clicked to another feed. Watched footage from 3 weeks ago, Amara alone in her bedroom, sitting on the edge of her bed, holding a framed photo he couldn't quite make out from the camera angle. He enhanced the image. His breath stopped. It was a photo of Nico. One he'd never seen before. She must have taken it herself, Nico in the garden, caught mid-laugh at something off camera. A rare moment of joy Amara had captured and kept like treasure. She was looking at it with such open love, such unguarded tenderness, that Dante felt like he was intruding on something sacred. I don't know if I'm doing this right, she whispered to the photo. I don't know if I'm enough. But I promise you, kid, I'm trying. I'm trying so damn hard. She set the photo on her nightstand, the place of honor beside her bed, and turned off the light. Dante backed out of that footage, his hands shaking. He pulled up another file. This one from 5 weeks ago, the day he'd questioned her about her background, implied she might have ulterior motives. He'd been standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, voice cold. I need to know your endgame here. Amara had looked at him with those steady eyes, no defensiveness, just quiet hurt. There is no endgame. There's just today, and tomorrow, and the day after that. There's just showing up for a little boy who needs someone to show up. Everyone wants something. You're right. I want Nico to be okay. That's what I want. That's the only thing I want. He'd dismissed her then. Told himself she was well-trained, knew what to say. But watching it back now, seeing the way her hands trembled slightly, the way her voice caught on Nico's name, the way she looked at him like she was disappointed in what he'd become. She'd been telling the truth. The whole truth. And he'd been too damaged to hear it. Dante pulled up more footage. Watched her cry alone. Watched her celebrate tiny victories in silence. Watched her research Italian lullabies on YouTube until she could sing them perfectly. Watched her learn to make Nico's favorite foods from Rosa, practice piano pieces she thought he might enjoy, read psychology textbooks like they were mystery novels. Watched her love his son with a ferocity that demanded nothing in return. And then he watched himself in those same feeds. Saw his own appearances, brief, distant, cold. Saw himself walk past Nico's room a dozen times without entering. Saw himself watch from doorways but never step through. Saw himself choose his office, his work, his comfortable numbness over the messy reality of fatherhood. Saw himself become a ghost in his own home. The door to his office opened without warning. Marco stepped in, took one look at Dante's face, and froze. "Boss?" Dante couldn't speak. His throat had closed around words too big to escape. Marco moved closer, saw the screens, the footage, the timestamp that showed he'd been reviewing weeks of recordings. His expression shifted from concern to understanding to something that looked like pity. "You're seeing it now," Marco said quietly. It wasn't a question. "I've been," Dante's voice broke. He tried again. "I've been watching the wrong person." "Yeah. She's real. It's all real. Everything she's done, everything she's given." "Yeah." Dante looked up at his oldest friend, his most trusted lieutenant, the man who'd saved his life more times than he could count. "How do I fix this?" Marco pulled up a chair, sat down heavily. "I don't know if you can, boss. Not all the way. You violated her privacy. You suspected her of the worst when she was giving her best. That's not something you just apologize away. So what do I do?" "You start by being honest. You tell her about the cameras. You tell her everything. And then you let her decide if she can forgive you." Marco leaned forward. "But before you do that, you need to ask yourself something important." "What?" "Why does it matter so much? Is this about Nico? Or is this about something else?" Dante's jaw clenched. "It's about my son." "Is it?" Marco's eyes were too knowing, too sharp. "Because I've been watching you watch her for 8 weeks now. And boss, the way you look at that woman when you think nobody's paying attention? That's not a man worried about his kid's nanny. That's a man who's terrified he's feeling something he swore he'd never feel again. Don't. Someone needs to say it. You're falling for her. Maybe you already fell. And that scares you more than any bullet ever did." Dante wanted to deny it. Wanted to argue. Wanted to throw Marco out of his office for even suggesting such an impossible thing. But he couldn't. Because somewhere between suspicion and surveillance, between watching and witnessing, he'd stopped seeing Amara as a threat and started seeing her as what? As beautiful. As patient. As brave. As everything he wasn't anymore. As someone who made him remember what it felt like to hope. "I don't deserve that," Dante whispered. "I don't deserve her. I don't deserve any of this." "Probably not," Marco agreed. "But your son deserves a father who tries. And that woman deserves the truth. So figure out what you're going to do about it." He left Dante alone with the screens, the evidence of his paranoia, the proof of his failure. Dante sat there until dawn, watching footage, making a choice. He would tell Amara everything. He would destroy the cameras, delete the files, burn it all down. And then he would do what he should have done 3 years ago. He would learn to be present. To be real. To be the man his family needed instead of the ghost he'd become. Starting tomorrow. Starting with the truth. Morning came too fast and not fast enough. Dante hadn't slept. He'd spent the night in his office, systematically going through every camera file, every recording, cataloging exactly how deep his paranoia had cut. By the time gray light filtered through the windows, he had a clear picture of his sins. 47 cameras throughout the house. 17 of them hidden. Hundreds of hours of footage spanning 8 weeks. Every private moment Amara thought she had alone, documented, archived, violated. He'd become the thing he claimed to protect his family from. A surveillance state of one, ruling through suspicion and control. His phone buzzed. Rosa, breakfast in 20 minutes. Nico asking for Miss Amara. Asking for her. Not screaming. Not hiding. Asking. Dante pulled himself from his chair, every muscle protesting the night spent motionless. He looked like hell, rumpled clothes, 2 days of beard growth, eyes bloodshot from staring at screens. Good. He should look like hell. He felt like hell. He found them in the kitchen. Nico was sitting at the table, actually sitting, not hiding, while Amara made pancakes at the stove. She was humming that lullaby again, and Nico was humming along with her. Off-key and quiet, but humming. The scene was so achingly domestic that Dante's chest constricted. Rosa spotted him first. Her eyes widened at his appearance, but she knew better than to comment. She just poured him coffee, pressed the mug into his hands like it was medicine. Amara turned, saw him, and her smile faltered. Mr. Moretti. I didn't realize you were home. I thought you'd left for work already. Mr. Moretti. Still. Always. I was in my office, he said, his voice rough from disuse. Nico looked up from the placemat he'd been coloring. Their eyes met, Dante and his son, separated by 3 feet and 3 years of accumulated distance. Hi, Papa, Nico said softly. 2 words. So simple. So devastating. Dante's throat worked. Hi, son. Awkward silence stretched. Amara filled it by sliding pancakes onto Nico's plate, cutting them into small pieces without being asked, adding exactly the right amount of syrup. She knew his preferences. Knew his routines. Knew him. Dante knew nothing anymore. Nico, he started, then faltered. What did you say to a child you'd abandoned emotionally? How did you bridge a canyon built from absence? Amara must have sensed his struggle. Why don't you join us, she offered gently. I made extra. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But his feet wouldn't move, and his mouth wouldn't work, and he was failing again in real time while his son watched him prove, once again, that he wasn't capable of this. I should, he gestured vaguely toward his office. Work. Disappointment flickered across Amara's face, quick as lightning. She masked it immediately, but he'd seen it. That judgment. That confirmation that he was exactly what she'd accused him of being, a man who chose distance over difficulty. Of course, she said coolly. We'll save you a plate. He left. Made it halfway down the hall before Marco intercepted him. Are you kidding me right now? Not now, Marco. Yes, now. Your kid is in there actually talking, actually present, and you ran away. I didn't run. You ran. Just like you always run when things get real. Marco blocked his path. When are you going to stop being scared and start being a father? The words hit like bullets. Dante's hand shot out, gripped Marco's shirt, slammed him against the wall. You don't get to. I don't get to what? Tell you the truth? Someone has to. Marco didn't fight back, didn't even flinch. Isabella would be ashamed of what you've become. Dante released him like he'd been burned. The words landed exactly where Marco intended, in the soft, rotting center of Dante's grief. She'd be ashamed I let our son suffer because I was too broken to fix myself, Dante whispered. She'd be ashamed I hired someone to love him because I forgot how. So stop being ashamed and start being different. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You just don't want to do the work because it hurts. Marco was right. The truth always hurt when someone you trusted delivered it. Dante straightened his shirt, ran a hand through his hair. I need to talk to Amara. Alone. About time. He waited until Nico went to his therapy session with Rosa. Watched through the window as they drove away, his son's small figure visible in the back seat. Then he went looking for Amara. He found her in the garden, kneeling beside Isabella's grave marker, pulling weeds from around the marble. She didn't hear him approach, too focused on her task, on making this small memorial beautiful. She'd like what you've done here, Dante said quietly. Amara, startled, spun around. Her hand went to her chest. You scared me. Sorry. I seem to be good at that lately. She studied his face, taking in the exhaustion, the defeat. Are you okay? The question was so genuine, so concerned despite everything, that it almost broke him. No, he admitted. I need to talk to you. Can we? He gestured to the stone bench beneath the willow tree. Amara stood slowly, brushing dirt from her knees. She followed him to the bench, sat on the far end, putting maximum distance between them. Defensive. Smart. Dante had rehearsed this conversation 100 times in his head. Had practiced the right words, the right tone, the right approach. All of it vanished the moment he sat down. I've been watching you, he blurted out. On cameras. Hidden cameras. In Nico's room, the playroom, here in the garden. Cameras you didn't know about. Amara went very still. The color drained from her face. I've been watching you for 8 weeks, Dante continued, the words tumbling out now that he'd started. Every moment you thought was private wasn't. Every tear, every conversation with Isabella, every second you spent alone with Nico, I saw it all. You, her voice came out strangled. You were spying on me? Yes. Why? The hurt in that single word could have leveled cities. Because I'm broken, Dante said simply. Because after Isabella died, I lost the ability to trust anyone. Because in my world, everyone is a threat until proven otherwise. Because I convinced myself you must have an agenda, must be working for someone, must be. Must be fake, Amara finished, her voice cold now. You thought I was fake. I thought you had to be. Because in my experience, nobody loves without wanting something in return. Nobody gives without expecting payment. I am getting paid, she said bitterly. That's the whole arrangement, isn't it? $200,000 to play mother to your son. You're not playing anything. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Dante turned to face her fully. I watched the footage. All of it. Every moment. And I saw you. You saw a performance. That's what you thought it was. No. I saw you cry alone in your room because Nico wouldn't talk to you. I saw you research trauma responses at 3 in the morning. I saw you sit outside his door for hours just so he wouldn't feel abandoned. I saw you come to my dead wife's grave and promise her you'd take care of our son. Tears were streaming down Amara's face now, but her expression remained hard. You had no right. You're absolutely correct. I had no right. What I did was invasive and unforgivable, Anne. And typical, she cut him off. You want to know what I learned in 8 weeks living in this house? You're so busy protecting yourself from feeling anything that you've forgotten how to be human. You've turned your home into a fortress, your son into a problem to be managed, and me into a suspect to be investigated. Each word was a scalpel, precise and cutting. You're right, Dante said. About all of it. I don't want to be right. I want, her voice broke. She took a shuddering breath. I want to go back. I'll stay until you find someone else, because I won't abandon Nico, but I can't be here knowing you've been watching me like I'm some kind of criminal. I'm destroying the cameras. All of them. And I'm deleting the footage. Everything except last night. She looked at him sharply. Last night? When you fed Nico. When he spoke for the first time in 3 years. When you, Dante's voice cracked. When you did what I couldn't. I'm keeping that footage because I need to remember. Need to remember what I almost destroyed through my own paranoia. Amara wiped her eyes angrily. Is that supposed to make this okay? No. Nothing makes this okay. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for honesty. Complete honesty, which you deserve and I've never given you. He took a breath, dove into the deep water. I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the garden air between them, heavy and impossible. Amara stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. What? I'm falling in love with you, Dante repeated, the words coming easier the second time. Maybe I already fell. I don't know. But Marco was right. I haven't been watching you because I suspected you. Not for weeks. I've been watching you because I was trying to understand how someone could be so genuine, so patient, so willing to break themselves open for a child who wasn't theirs. Don't. Amara stood abruptly. Don't do this. Don't try to make surveillance romantic. I'm not. What I did was wrong. Criminal. Unforgivable. I know that. Dante stood too. But you asked me why I'm telling you now, and the answer is because you deserve the truth. All of it. Including the fact that somewhere between suspicion and watching you save my son, I stopped being a ghost and started wanting to be alive again. Amara's hands were shaking. You don't love me. You love what I represent. You love that I fixed your problem, made your guilt manageable, gave you an excuse to not deal with your own damage. The words should have hurt. Instead, they rang with truth. Maybe, Dante conceded. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm too fucked up to know the difference between gratitude and love. But I know this. When I watched you last night, singing to my son, loving him without reservation, I realized something. I don't want to live in surveillance footage anymore. I don't want to experience life through cameras and distance. I want to be in the room. I want to be present. I want to be real. Then be real with your son. Not with me. I want both. I want to be the father Nico deserves. And I want, he stopped, corrected himself. No. Not want. I need to learn how to trust again. And you're the only person I've met in 3 years who makes me believe that's possible. Amara shook her head, backing away. This is too much. You violated my privacy, admitted to spying on me for months, and now you're claiming you love me? That's not love, Mr. Moretti. That's control wearing a different mask. She was right. Of course she was right. Then teach me the difference, Dante said desperately. Teach me what real love looks like. Not the kind that watches from a distance. The kind that shows up. The kind you've been giving Nico every single day. I can't teach you that. That's something you have to choose to do yourself. Then I choose it. Starting now. I choose to destroy the cameras. I choose to tell you the truth. I choose to stop hiding in my office and start being present in my own life. He took a step closer. And I'm asking, no, begging, for the chance to prove I can be different. Amara looked at him with those clear eyes, seeing right through him. This isn't about me at all, is it? This is about you needing absolution. Needing someone to tell you it's okay that you failed your son for 3 years. The truth of it staggered him. Yes, he whispered. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm selfish enough that I need you to forgive me so I can forgive myself. But that doesn't make the rest of it a lie. It doesn't make what I feel for you less real. How would you even know what's real? You've been watching a screen for so long you've forgotten what it's like to actually connect with another human being. She was destroying him with accuracy. Every word a kill shot. You're right. I don't know. But I want to learn. And you're the only person who's made me want to try. Amara wrapped her arms around herself. I need time. I need to think about whether I can stay here knowing what you did. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. She laughed, but it sounded broken. That's the problem though, isn't it? You've been here the whole time, but you've been nowhere at all. She walked away, leaving Dante alone in the garden with his dead wife's grave and the wreckage of his latest failure. But this time, he didn't retreat to his office. This time, he stayed in the pain. This time, he chose to feel everything. 3 days passed in careful silence. Amara stayed, but the warmth between them had frozen solid. She cared for Nico with the same devotion, but she avoided Dante completely. When he entered a room, she found a reason to leave. When he tried to speak to her, she gave him polite, distant responses that hurt more than anger would have. She'd pulled down the invisible barrier that separated employee from family, and now Dante understood what he'd lost before he ever had it. Nico noticed immediately. Children always did. Why is Amara sad? He asked Dante on the 3rd morning, catching him in the hallway before work. Dante crouched down to his son's level, something he was trying to remember to do now. Eye contact. Physical presence. The basics of fatherhood he'd forgotten. Because I made a mistake, Dante said honestly. A big one. Did you say sorry? I did. But sometimes sorry isn't enough. Nico frowned, thinking hard. Amara says you have to show sorry, not just say it. Like when I broke Rose's vase, she said I had to help fix it, not just say the words. Out of the mouths of 6-year-olds came devastating wisdom. You're right. I need to show I'm sorry, not just say it. Dante touched Nico's shoulder gently. How do I do that? You could make her pancakes. She always makes me pancakes when I'm sad. Dante smiled despite everything. That's a good idea, son. That night, after Nico was asleep, Dante went to the kitchen. Rosa had left hours ago. Amara was upstairs in her room. The massive house felt empty despite being full of people. He'd never made pancakes in his life. Isabella had been the cook in their marriage. He'd been useless in the kitchen, always working, always absent even when present. Time to change that. He pulled up a recipe on his phone. Gathered ingredients. Made a mess of the counter trying to measure flour. Burned the first batch so badly the smoke alarm went off. Swore in Italian at the stove. Started over. By the 3rd attempt, he had something vaguely resembling edible pancakes. He heard footsteps on the stairs. Amara appeared in the doorway, wearing sleep shorts and an oversized t-shirt, hair loose around her shoulders. She looked exhausted. What are you doing? She stared at the disaster zone that was the kitchen. Making pancakes. Or trying to. I'm not very good at it. I can see that. She stepped into the kitchen, surveyed the damage. You used salt instead of sugar. Dante looked at the container he'd used. She was right. That explains the taste. You tasted them? I had to make sure they weren't poisonous before I offered them to you. The ghost of a smile crossed her face before she remembered she was angry. Why are you making me pancakes? Because my son told me you make pancakes for people when they're sad. And you're sad. Because of me. Dante set down the spatula. And because saying sorry isn't enough. I need to show sorry. Amara leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Pancakes don't fix surveillance, Mr. Moretti. Dante. Please. Just Dante. Dante, she conceded. Pancakes don't fix it. I know. Nothing fixes it. But I need to start somewhere. And I figure learning to make food for people he caught himself. For people I care about is a place to begin. She studied him quietly. You're trying. I am. Badly. But yes. Why now? Why after 8 weeks of watching me like I was a threat? Dante abandoned the pretense of cooking, turned to face her fully. Because I saw you save my son, and I realized I'd been so busy protecting him from imaginary threats that I'd become the real threat. Because I'm tired of being afraid all the time. Because you were right, I've been nowhere even while being here, and I don't want that anymore. What do you want? The question was sincere, not rhetorical. I want to be Nico's father. Really be his father. Not the man who provides and protects from a distance. The man who shows up, who makes mistakes, who tries. He paused. And I want to know you. Not through cameras. Not through watching. Through actual conversation, actual connection, actual risk. Why should I give you that chance? Because despite everything, you're still here. You could have left 3 days ago. You could have packed your bags and walked away from this mess. But you didn't. Why? Amara's expression cracked slightly. Because of Nico. Just because of Nico? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Dante took a careful step closer. Not invading, just closing distance. I had Marco remove all the cameras today. Every single one. Even the visible security ones. The house is dark now. No surveillance. No watching. No recording. Her eyes widened. That's dangerous. For someone in your line of work. I don't care. I'm done living like I'm under siege. I'm done choosing safety over trust. Another step. I'm done being the man who needs proof before he believes someone might actually care. That's reckless. Probably. But watching you for 8 weeks taught me something. Real love is reckless. It's showing up without guarantees. It's sitting on a floor for an hour hoping a traumatized kid might eat a single bite. It's staying when everything says you should run. Tears welled in Amara's eyes. Don't. Don't what? Don't make this about love. We barely know each other. You're right. We don't. Because I spent 2 months investigating you instead of talking to you. So let's fix that. Dante pulled out a chair at the kitchen table. Sit. Talk to me. No cameras. No surveillance. Just 2 people having a conversation. Amara hesitated, warring with herself. Finally, she sat. Not close. But sitting. Dante took the chair across from her, keeping the table between them. Safe distance. Tell me about your parents, he said. Why? Because I need to know you. Really know you. And I should have asked 2 months ago instead of reading background reports. Amara's fingers traced patterns on the table. They died when I was 4. House fire. Electrical fault. I don't remember much except my mom singing me Chinese lullabies and my dad making me laugh. After that, foster care. 7 different homes before I aged out. That's where you learned about trauma. That's where I lived trauma. There's a difference. She met his eyes. I know what it's like to be Nico. To lose everything and have no control. To be so scared of connecting because everyone leaves eventually. That's why I understood him. Why I knew sitting on the floor and just being present was what he needed. You gave him what you needed when you were his age. Yes. Who gave that to you? Amara smiled sadly. Mrs. Patterson. Foster mom number 5. She was kind. Patient. She's the one who taught me about sitting with sadness instead of trying to fix it. She died of cancer when I was 15. But she left me her music books and a letter that said I had a gift for understanding pain. She was right. Maybe. Or maybe I just recognize it because I've carried so much of my own. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of shared grief settling between them like a bridge. Tell me about Isabella, Amara said quietly. The request surprised him. What do you want to know? Everything you're willing to share. Because I've been living in her house, sleeping in her guest room, singing her lullabies to her son. And I feel like a ghost haunting someone else's life. I want to know her. Want to understand what I could never be. The vulnerability in that admission broke something open in Dante's chest. You're not replacing her, he said firmly. You couldn't if you tried. But that's not a bad thing. You're not supposed to be Isabella. You're supposed to be Amara. And Amara is, he searched for words. Amara is someone who makes broken people remember how to be whole. She looked away, tears spilling over. Isabella was my high school sweetheart, Dante continued. We grew up in the same neighborhood. She knew what my family was, what I'd become, and she loved me anyway. She was fierce and funny, and she never let me get away with being cold. She'd call me on my bullshit every single time. She sounds amazing. She was. But she was also human. We fought. We had problems. The pregnancy was difficult. She had postpartum depression that lasted a year. Some days she couldn't get out of bed, and I didn't know how to help her. It wasn't perfect. It was real. How did she die? Dante's jaw clenched. He'd never told anyone the full story except Marco. Car accident. Black ice. She was coming home from her sister's house. A semi-truck lost control, crossed the median. She died on impact. He paused. Nico was in the car. Back seat. He saw everything. Walked away without a physical scratch. But the psychological damage. Understanding dawned on Amara's face. That's why he stopped talking. The therapists say it's trauma-induced selective mutism. He physically can, but psychologically can't. Until 3 nights ago when Dante's voice broke. When you gave him back his voice. I didn't do anything special. You did everything. You loved him without demanding love in return. That's the hardest thing to do in the world. Amara wiped her eyes. Is that what you're doing now? Trying to love without demands? I'm trying to learn. Trying to be different. Trying to show up. He reached across the table slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. He covered her hand with his. I know I can't undo the surveillance. Can't erase the violation. But I can try to be better going forward. Can try to be the kind of man who deserves your trust instead of demanding it. Her hand trembled under his. I'm scared. Of me? Of this. Of letting myself care about you, about Nico, about this life. Because I've learned that caring means losing. And I don't know if I can survive another loss. I can't promise you won't get hurt. I can't promise I won't fuck up again, I probably will. But I can promise I'll try. I'll show up. I'll be present. I'll choose connection over safety every single time from now on. Amara looked at their hands, then at his face. I'm not ready to forgive you yet. I know. And I might never fully trust you again. I understand. But I'm willing to see if you can become the person you claim you want to be. For Nico's sake. It wasn't everything. But it was something. Thank you, Dante whispered. She squeezed his hand once, then pulled away. Stood. I should go to bed. It's late. Amara? She paused at the doorway. Those lullabies you learned. Isabella would have loved that you sing them to Nico. She'd be grateful. His voice caught. She'd probably like you a lot. Tears streamed down Amara's face, but she smiled. I'd like to think so. She left him alone in the destroyed kitchen with burnt pancakes and something that felt dangerously like hope. 2 weeks passed. Dante kept his promise. He showed up. Every morning at breakfast. Every evening for dinner. He sat with Nico, asked about his day, listened to dinosaur facts with genuine interest instead of distant patience. He was terrible at it, awkward and stilted and clearly uncomfortable, but he tried. Nico responded slowly, cautiously, like an animal testing whether the ground was safe. He'd answer questions in short sentences. Make eye contact for a few seconds. Occasionally laugh at something Dante said. They weren't close. Not yet. But they were building something. Amara watched from a distance, still cautious but softening incrementally. She'd smile when Dante made Nico laugh. Nod approvingly when he remembered to ask follow-up questions. Offer gentle corrections when he pushed too hard or backed off too fast. She was teaching him without making it obvious. And Dante was learning. On the 14th day, everything changed. It happened at 2 in the morning. Dante was asleep, actually asleep in his bed instead of working in his office, when screaming jolted him awake. Nico. He was running before his brain fully engaged, taking the stairs in his bare feet, heart hammering. He burst into Nico's room to find Amara already there, standing by the bed, hands raised in a calming gesture. But Nico wasn't calming. He was sitting up in bed, eyes wide and vacant, screaming words that came out garbled and panicked. Night terror. Not a nightmare, something worse. He was still asleep, trapped in his own mind. Mama. No. Mama, please. Wake up. Wake up. The screams carved through Dante's chest like a blade. Amara reached for him, trying to gently wake him. Nico's eyes snapped open, looked at her, and he lashed out, pushing her away with surprising strength. You're not my mama. I want my real mama. Where is she? Papa, where is she? The question speared Dante in place. All the therapy, all the healing, all the progress, and his son still didn't fully understand that Isabella wasn't coming back. Or worse. Maybe he did understand and just couldn't accept it. Amara stumbled back, hand over her mouth, eyes filling with tears. Nico's words had hit her exactly where she was most vulnerable, the fear that she was a poor substitute, a placeholder, a woman trying to fill shoes that weren't hers. Papa! Nico screamed again. Make Mama come back. You can fix it. Fix it. Dante moved on instinct, dropped to his knees beside the bed. Nico, son, look at me. Nico's wild eyes found his. Where's Mama? Every instinct screamed to lie, to soften it, to protect him from the truth. But Amara's words echoed, being hurt isn't being bad, and Mama's, real Mama's, tell the truth. She's dead, son. She died in the accident. She's not coming back. The words felt like murder. Nico's face crumpled. No. No. You said she was just away. You said she'd come back when she was better. The lie. The one Dante had told him right after the accident because he couldn't face his son's pain on top of his own. The lie that had rotted in Nico's mind for 3 years, festering into false hope and delayed grief. I was wrong, Dante said, his voice breaking. I shouldn't have lied. I was scared and sad and I didn't know how to tell you the truth. But she's gone, Nico. She's gone and she's not coming back and I'm so sorry. Nico launched himself at Dante, fists hitting his chest, screaming, you lied. You said she'd come back. You promised. Dante let him hit. Let him rage. Let him finally release 3 years of confusion and grief that had been locked behind that lie. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Nico collapsed against him, sobbing so hard his whole body shook. Dante wrapped his arms around his son, the first real hug they'd shared since Isabella died, and held him while he broke apart. Amara had backed up to the wall, hands pressed against her mouth, tears streaming. She looked devastated, like she was watching something too private, too sacred to witness. Dante met her eyes over Nico's head. Stay, he mouthed. She shook her head. This wasn't her moment. Please, he mouthed again. Because this was the work Amara had started. This was the healing she'd made possible. She deserved to see it through. She hesitated, then slowly sank down to the floor, giving them space but staying present. Dante didn't know how long they sat there. Could have been 10 minutes. Could have been an hour. Time dissolved into Nico's sobs and Dante's whispered apologies and the shared grief of 2 people who'd lost the same woman in different ways. Finally, Nico's sobs quieted to hiccups. He pulled back slightly, looked at Dante with red, swollen eyes. I don't remember her voice anymore, he whispered. I try, but I can't hear it. The confession destroyed what was left of Dante's composure. I have videos. On my phone. Of her singing to you. Reading to you. I can show you. Why didn't you show me before? Because I was scared it would hurt too much. For both of us. Nico processed this with that too old understanding. It hurts now. I know. But it's better than forgetting. Yes. Yes, it is. Nico looked past Dante to where Amara sat against the wall. I'm sorry I said you weren't my mama. I didn't mean. I know, sweetheart, Amara said quickly. You don't have to apologize. But I do. Because you're not my mama. She is. She'll always be my mama. Nico's face scrunched up with the effort of expressing something complex. But you're something too. You're Amara. And I love Amara. The words hung in the air, simple and profound. Amara made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. I love you too, Nico. So much. Can you both stay? Tonight? I don't want to be alone. Dante looked at Amara. She nodded. They moved Nico to the center of the bed. Dante lay on one side, Amara on the other. Nico grabbed both their hands, holding them like anchors. Tell me about Mama, Nico said. Both of you. Tell me everything. So they did. Dante shared memories, how Isabella would dance in the kitchen while cooking, how she'd sing off-key in the shower, how she'd snort when she laughed too hard. How she'd loved Nico from the moment she knew he existed. Amara shared observations, how she could see Isabella in Nico's eyes, in his smile, in the way he tilted his head. How she'd learned Isabella's lullabies and felt connected to a woman she'd never met. How she wished she could have known her. They talked until Nico fell asleep between them, his breathing evening out into peace. In the darkness, over his sleeping son, Dante found Amara's eyes. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For staying. For not running when it got hard. For loving him even when he pushed you away. For, his voice caught. For being you. Amara's free hand reached across Nico's body, found Dante's hand, squeezed gently. We're a family, she whispered. Broken and weird and not what any of us planned. But a family. And families stay. Dante felt something inside him, something that had been frozen solid for 3 years, crack open completely. I love you, he said. Not a plea or a confession or a demand. Just truth. Amara's eyes shimmered in the darkness. I know. You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. I'm getting there, she admitted softly. I'm not there yet. But I'm getting there. It was enough. They stayed like that, 2 adults and 1 child, connected by loss and hope and the slow, hard work of healing, until dawn broke through the windows. 8 weeks later, Dante stood in the garden watching Amara teach Nico how to plant tomatoes. The boy was covered in dirt, laughing as Amara showed him how to make the hole deep enough. She was equally dirty, hair tied back in a messy bun, completely unself-conscious in her joy. Something had shifted in the house. It felt lived in now instead of like a mausoleum. Laughter echoed in hallways. Music played in the kitchen. Nico talked, really talked, about his day, his feelings, his memories of Isabella. The grief hadn't disappeared. It never would. But it had transformed from something that paralyzed into something they could carry together. Rosa appeared beside Dante, handed him coffee. You're staring, Mr. Moretti. I'm observing. You're in love. He didn't deny it. Couldn't. It was written all over him. She's good for you, Rosa continued. For both of you. Miss Isabella would approve. Dante had thought about that often. What Isabella would think of this strange new family configuration. He'd finally accepted that she'd probably understand. She'd always been practical about death, made him promise after Nico was born that if anything happened to her, he'd find someone else. Don't be alone, she'd said. Nico needs a full house. Promise me. He'd promised, then promptly forgot after she died. Amara had reminded him. Rosa, can you watch Nico for an hour? I need to talk to Amara. The older woman smiled knowingly. Of course, sir. Dante waited until Nico was inside, then approached Amara. She looked up, smiled, the genuine smile she gave him now instead of the careful one from before. Walk with me, he asked, offering his hand. She took it without hesitation. They walked past the garden, through the gate, down the path that led to the small family cemetery at the edge of the property. They stopped in front of Isabella's grave. Dante knelt, brushed leaves away from the marble marker. Hi, Bella, he said softly. I brought someone to meet you. Officially. Amara knelt beside him, laid the wildflowers she'd picked in the garden against the stone. I talk to her sometimes, Amara admitted. I hope that's okay. It's more than okay. What do you talk about? Nico, mostly. How proud she'd be of him. How brave he is. How he's healing. Amara paused. And sometimes I ask her for advice. About you. What kind of advice? Whether I should trust you. Whether you're really changing or just performing change. She looked at him. She never answers, obviously. But asking helps me think. What have you decided? That you're trying. Really trying. That the man I met 8 weeks ago isn't the man sitting next to me now. She took his hand. You're still rough around the edges. Still learning. But you're present. You're here. That's what matters. Dante pulled a small box from his pocket. Amara's eyes widened. Wait. It's not what you think. I mean, it is, but not like he was bungling this. He took a breath, started over. Amara, our marriage started as a transaction. A contract. A business arrangement to solve a problem. But somewhere along the way, it became real. At least for me. And I want it to be real legally too. He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band, nothing flashy, nothing ostentatious. Just honest metal. This isn't a proposal because we're already married. This is a promise. A promise that I'll keep choosing to show up. Keep choosing to be present. Keep choosing you and Nico over my fear. He took the ring out. Will you choose me back? Not the contract. Not the arrangement. Me. The broken, learning, trying so damn hard version of me. Tears streamed down Amara's face. This is the worst proposal I've ever heard. I know. I'm terrible at this. It's also the best. She held out her left hand, the one that had worn his mother's ring for 8 weeks now. Yes. I choose you. I choose us. I choose this weird, broken, beautiful family we're building. Dante slid the ring on beside the other. 2 rings. 2 commitments. 1 promise. He kissed her then, their first real kiss. Not obligation or performance. Just 2 people who'd found each other in the wreckage and decided to build something new. When they pulled apart, Amara laughed through her tears. Isabella definitely approves. How do you know? Because a bird just landed on her headstone and sang. And I'm choosing to believe that's her telling us she's happy. Dante looked. Sure enough, a robin sat on the marble, trilling away. He'd never believed in signs. But maybe it was time to start. They walked back to the house hand in hand. Found Nico in the kitchen with Rosa, making cookies that were more mess than food. Did you ask her? Nico demanded immediately. Dante blinked. How did you? Rosa told me you were gonna ask her to be really married. Not fake married. Really married. Rosa talks too much, Dante muttered. Rosa tells the truth, Rosa countered, unrepentant. Nico looked between them anxiously. So? What did she say? Amara knelt down, showed him the new ring. I said yes. Nico's face split into the biggest smile Dante had seen in 3 years. He launched himself at Amara, hugging her tight. So you're staying forever? Not just for the contract? Forever, Amara confirmed. Or at least until you're sick of me. Never gonna happen, Nico declared. Then, shyly, can I call you Mom? Not instead of Mama. Just, also? Amara's face crumpled. She cupped Nico's face in her hands. I would be so honored. Okay. Mom. He tested the word, smiled. Mom. Dante watched his son, their son, bounce between them, happier than he'd been since before the accident. Watched Amara laugh and cry simultaneously. Watched his house transform into a home. His phone buzzed. Marco, Calabrese family wants a meeting. Tonight. Says it's important. For the first time in 15 years, Dante typed back, tell them no. I'm with my family. He turned off his phone completely. The business could wait. The empire could wait. The whole damn world could wait. Because he'd learned something in the past 10 weeks that he should have learned 3 years ago, nothing mattered more than the people in this kitchen. Nothing mattered more than being present for the moments that made up a life. Nothing mattered more than choosing love over fear, connection over control, presence over power. Papa. Nico called. Come help us make cookies. Mom says you're terrible at cooking but you should practice. Dante laughed, a real laugh that came from somewhere deep he'd thought was dead. She's absolutely right. I'm terrible. He joined them at the counter, let Nico show him how to measure flour, let Amara guide his hands, let himself be part of this chaotic, messy, perfect moment. Later that night, after cookies and dinner and a bath that left more water on the floor than in the tub, they tucked Nico into bed together. Sing the lullaby, Nico requested. Both of you. Amara started in Italian, her voice pure and practiced. Dante joined in for the harmony, rusty and imperfect, but trying. Together they created something that wasn't as good as Isabella used to sing alone, but was beautiful in its own right. Nico fell asleep with a smile on his face. In the hallway, Dante pulled Amara close, pressed his forehead to hers. Thank you for not giving up on us. On me. Thank you for learning how to be here. I love you. This time, she didn't hesitate. I love you too. They stood there in the dim hallway of a house that had been a prison and was now a home, holding each other, choosing each other, building something new from the wreckage of what was lost. Downstairs, Dante's laptop sat on his desk. On it, a single video file remained, the footage from that night 8 weeks ago when everything changed. When Amara sat on the floor and fed Nico dinner and gave him back his voice. Dante had watched it 100 times since. A reminder of what love actually looked like. A reminder that presence mattered more than protection. A reminder that sometimes the family you choose becomes the family you need. He'd keep that footage. Not as evidence or surveillance or proof, but as a reminder of the moment he stopped being a ghost and started being alive again. The moment a stranger became family. The moment love won. Epilogue 6 months later. The art gallery was packed, but Amara wasn't nervous anymore. She'd spent 6 months preparing for this show, paintings inspired by resilience, healing, family, love. Each canvas told a story. Dante stood beside her, hand on the small of her back, watching people examine her work with pride radiating from every pore. Nico darted between guests, explaining in detail which paintings were his favorites and why. He'd gained weight, grown 2 inches, become a completely different child, confident, joyful, present. Mrs. Moretti, a critic, approached, extending her hand. Your work is extraordinary. The emotional depth, the vulnerability, it's rare to see this level of honesty in contemporary art. Mrs. Moretti. Not a contract. Not an arrangement. Real. Thank you, Amara said, squeezing Dante's hand. After the opening, they drove home together, the 3 of them in the back seat while Marco drove, Nico between his parents, chattering about the gallery, the people, the art. When I grow up, Nico announced, I'm gonna be an artist like Mom. Or a dinosaur scientist. Haven't decided yet. You have time, Dante assured him. Lots of time. At home, they followed their evening routine, dinner together, dishes together, Nico's homework at the kitchen table with both parents helping, bath time, stories, lullabies. Normal. Beautifully, wonderfully normal. After Nico was asleep, Dante and Amara sat in the garden under the stars. He'd had the space redesigned, added a fountain, new flowers, a bench inscribed with Isabella's name. Honoring the past while building the future. I never thought I'd be happy again, Dante admitted. After Isabella died, I thought this was it. Survival. Existing. Going through motions until I died too. What changed? You walked into my house and showed me what love actually looks like. Patient. Present. Willing to sit in pain without trying to fix it. He kissed her temple. You saved us. Me and Nico. You saved us both. You saved yourselves, Amara corrected gently. I just showed up. You both did the hard work of healing. We did it together. Yeah, she smiled. We did. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Inside the house, Nico slept peacefully. No nightmares. No tears. Just the deep sleep of a child who felt safe and loved and secure. In his office, Dante's computer sat dark. No cameras. No surveillance. No watching. Just trust. Just presence. Just love. And that, it turned out, was more than enough. Sometimes the people we're most afraid to trust are exactly the ones who save us. Sometimes family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up, who stays, who loves us through the mess and the healing. Dante learned that love isn't about control or surveillance, it's about presence. It's about choosing connection over fear every single day. What about you? Have you ever misjudged someone completely? Have you ever been given a second chance at love, at family, at trust? Have you ever had to learn how to be present instead of just existing? Drop your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. We bring you stories about redemption, second chances, and the families we choose. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story that might change your perspective or heal something you didn't know was broken. And here's my question for you. What's more important, protecting yourself from pain, or opening yourself to love even when it's risky? Think about that. Really think about it. Because the answer might change everything. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's afraid to trust again. Someone who's forgotten how to be present. Someone who needs to know that broken families can heal, that second chances are real, that love, a real love, is always worth the risk.